Right now, 3 separate zones along the Pacific Ring of Fire are showing genuinely unusual activity at the same time, and scientists tracking each one say none of it is finished yet. In Kamchatka, Russia, the region is still living in the aftermath of a magnitude 8.8 megathrust earthquake, tied for the 6th largest earthquake ever instrumentally recorded. And new research published this year warns that unruptured sections of that same fault could still move in a future event. In Hawaii, Kilauea has just completed its 51st fountaining episode since December of 2024, already the most episodes ever recorded for this type of eruption cycle, with scientists forecasting the next one within days. And in Alaska, Great Sitkin volcano remains at watch status with an orange aviation alert, its slow eruption of lava continuing inside the summit crater for 5 straight years without stopping. Today, we are going to break down exactly what is happening at each of these 3 genuinely active zones, whether this represents real, connected escalation across the Ring of Fire, and what the current science actually says. No exaggeration, no doomsday guessing, just the data, the monitoring reports, and the real stakes. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever felt an earthquake or watched a volcano erupt from somewhere along this Ring of Fire? Tell me where you were. So many of you write in from Alaska, Hawaii, Japan, and across the Pacific, and I read every single one of those comments. If you want to know the moment anything changes at any of these 3 locations, subscribe right now. It costs nothing, and a thumbs up tells the algorithm to put this in front of the people who genuinely need to see it. Let us get into it. The Pacific Ring of Fire is not actually a single continuous ring of erupting volcanoes. It is a roughly 25,000-mile horseshoe-shaped belt of tectonic plate boundaries encircling the Pacific Ocean, home to about 452 volcanoes and responsible for close to 90% of the world's earthquakes and roughly 75% of its active volcanoes. Many sections of this belt can go years or decades without a major eruption, while earthquakes of varying sizes occur constantly throughout the region, which means the real question worth asking is not whether something is always happening somewhere on the Ring of Fire, but whether the specific events happening right now represent something genuinely unusual. Let us start with Kamchatka, because what happened there remains one of the most significant seismic events of this entire decade. On July 29th of last year, a magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck off the eastern coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia's far east, at a depth of roughly 35 kilometers, along the Kamchatka Trench, a megathrust subduction zone where one tectonic plate is forced beneath another. This earthquake tied for the 6th largest ever recorded by modern seismic instruments, and it did not arrive without warning signs. It followed a 10-day sequence that began with 50 separate magnitude 5 or larger earthquakes, including a magnitude 7.4 shock and 3 separate magnitude 6.6 events. When the main shock finally struck, it triggered Pacific-wide tsunami watches and warnings, sending waves as tall as 13 feet crashing into the Russian coastline and destroying the port of Severokurilsk, while tsunami alerts were issued as far away as Japan, Hawaii, Alaska, and even California. NASA satellites captured the resulting tsunami crossing the open Pacific in extraordinary detail for the first time, and seismic waves from the quake were detected racing across the seafloor at axial seamount off the Oregon coast, just 9 minutes after the rupture began, rattling underwater sensors continuously for more than 4 hours. This is not old news that has simply faded away. New research published this year in the journal Geoscience Letters found that the actual seafloor displacement during this earthquake was more limited than early models predicted, which explains why the resulting tsunami, while still destructive, was smaller than initial forecasts suggested it could have been. But the same research team was explicit about what remains unresolved, stating clearly that there is still a risk the unruptured portions of the fault surrounding the slip zone may move in a future earthquake, meaning this specific stretch of the Kamchatka Trench has not necessarily finished releasing its accumulated stress, and scientists continue monitoring aftershocks in the sequence, including magnitude 6.9 and 6.2 events recorded well after the original quake. Now let us go to Hawaii, where Kilauea is producing one of the most unusual eruption patterns scientists have ever documented at this volcano. Since December 23rd of 2024, Kilauea has been erupting episodically from 2 vents inside Halema-Umayu crater, with individual fountaining episodes typically lasting less than 12 hours, followed by pauses that can stretch longer than 3 weeks. This eruption has now passed 51 separate episodes, surpassing the 47 high fountaining episodes recorded during the famous Pu-U'o eruption of 1983 to 1986, making this the most episodic fountaining eruption ever recorded at this volcano in its entire monitored history. Episode 51 itself began at 8:30 in the morning on July 15th of this year, following several hours of precursory lava overflows, rising seismic tremor, and summit inflation, and it produced fountains reaching approximately 950 feet above ground level from the north vent, with effusion rates peaking at around 400 cubic yards per second, before ending abruptly at 4:46 that same afternoon after just over 8 hours of continuous fountaining. The United States Geological Survey's Hawaiian Volcano Observatory has kept the volcano at watch status with an orange aviation color code throughout this entire cycle, and forecasters are now projecting that episode 52 could begin between July 24th and July 30th of this year, based on the pattern of summit inflation and deflation that has reliably preceded each of the previous episodes. Every single one of these episodes has remained fully confined within Halema-Umau crater inside Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, meaning no homes, roads, or populated areas have been directly threatened by lava at any point in this entire 2-year-long cycle, though wind-blown volcanic glass fragments known as Pelly's hair have occasionally fallen on nearby overlooks and trailheads, capable of irritating skin and eyes on contact. What makes this pattern scientifically significant is not danger to the public. It is the sheer duration and repetition, a magma supply rate steady enough to produce 51 distinct fountaining events over roughly 19 months, with the interval between episodes varying from 9 to 21 days depending on subtle shifts in how quickly magma refills the shallow system beneath the crater. And now to Alaska, where Great Sitkin volcano in the Aleutian Islands has been quietly producing one of the longest sustained lava effusions currently active anywhere in the United States. According to the Alaska Volcano Observatory's most recent daily update, Great Sitkin remains at watch status with an orange aviation color code, its slow eruption of lava within the summit crater continuing steadily, with minor earthquakes detected regularly and satellite imagery periodically obscured by cloud cover over the remote island. This eruption began back in July of 2021, and since then, lava flows have progressively filled most of the summit crater and advanced into the valleys below, all without a single explosive event since a brief explosion back in May of that same year. This is a fundamentally different eruptive style from either Kamchatka's sudden megathrust rupture or Kilauea's dramatic fountaining episodes. Great Sitkin represents patient, continuous effusion, magma quietly reaching the surface and slowly building volume over years rather than releasing energy in sudden concentrated bursts, monitored constantly through local seismic and infrasound sensors, satellite data, webcams, and regional lightning detection networks specifically, because remote Aleutian volcanoes like this one can be difficult to observe visually for extended stretches at a time. So here is the honest scientific question worth asking. When 3 zones along the same tectonic belt show significant activity within the same general window of time, is the ring of fire actually becoming more active? Or are these 3 genuinely unrelated systems simply doing what sections of this belt have always done, independently and on their own separate timelines? The tectonic answer is clear. Kamchatka sits along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, where the Pacific Plate subducts beneath the Okhotsk Plate. Hawaii sits over a stationary mantle hotspot entirely disconnected from any subduction boundary, and Alaska's Aleutian Arc involves the Pacific Plate subducting beneath the North American Plate. 3 separate geological mechanisms that do not communicate with each other in any direct physical sense. What connects them is not shared underlying geology. It is that all 3 sit somewhere along the same 25,000-mile arc that hosts the overwhelming majority of the planet's seismic and volcanic activity, meaning multiple zones showing significant activity within the same general period is a statistically expected outcome of how much of Earth's total volcanic and seismic energy this one belt is responsible for releasing, not evidence that the entire ring has somehow switched on together. If you live near any of these 3 regions, here is what is actually worth knowing right now. If you are anywhere along the Pacific coastline, from Kamchatka to Japan to Alaska to Hawaii to California, know your tsunami evacuation route to higher ground, since the Kamchatka event proved that a single megathrust earthquake thousands of miles away can trigger genuine coastal alerts across the entire ocean basin within hours. If you are visiting Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, hoping to see Kilauea's next episode, check the USGS Kilauea Updates page before you go, since fountaining episodes remain unpredictable in exact timing even when the general window is known, and bring eye protection given the periodic Pelly's hair fallout at overlook areas. And if you live near any remote, continuously monitored volcano like Great Sitkin, trust that the observatories tracking these systems are watching every available signal, seismic, infrasound, satellite, and visual, specifically because slow, patient eruptions like this one require exactly that kind of sustained, quiet vigilance rather than the dramatic short-term monitoring a sudden eruption would demand. Final thought. Kamchatka, Hawaii, and Alaska are giving us 3 genuinely different case studies happening at once along the same tectonic belt, One region still absorbing the aftermath of one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded, with real questions remaining about unruptured fault sections. One volcano setting records for the sheer number of eruptive episodes in its own monitored history, and one remote system quietly building lava within its crater for 5 consecutive years without a single explosion. None of this proves the Ring of Fire has switched into some new, more dangerous phase. What it proves is that on any given month, this 25,000-mile arc is doing exactly what it has always done, and improved global monitoring now lets us watch every part of it happening close to real time. We will keep tracking every aftershock out of Kamchatka, every fountaining episode at Kilauea, and every daily update out of Great Sitkin as this story develops. Subscribe so you do not miss it, and leave that comment below. Have you ever lived through or witnessed activity from any of these 3 specific volcanic and seismic zones? Because these are not just headlines. They are the daily reality tracked by scientists working around the clock across an entire ocean basin. Let us get this one to 5,000 likes. See you in the next one.